ethical and responsible leadership as a core competency of global leaders. 1. Introduction. In the increasingly interconnected and interdependent global environment, leaders face complex moral and ethical challenges that transcend national boundaries. Cultural norms and organizational mandates, issues such as environmental degradation, inequality, corruption, human rights abuses, and corporate misconduct have intensified demands for leaders who act with integrity, accountability, and a sense of global responsibility. These challenges underscore the vital importance of ethical and responsible leadership, a leadership paradigm grounded not only in strategic competence, but also in moral consciousness and social stewardship. Ethical leadership, in a global context, requires the ability to reconcile universal moral values with cultural diversity, ensuring that actions and policies respect human dignity while remaining contextually sensitive. It also involves aligning corporate objectives with the broader goals of sustainability, justice, and inclusive growth. As globalization blurs the boundaries between business, politics, and civil society, ethical and responsible leadership has emerged as both a moral necessity and a strategic imperative for organizational legitimacy and long-term success. This essay explores ethical and responsible leadership as a core competency of global leaders, examining its theoretical foundations, cultural dimensions, and practical applications. It emphasizes three key aspects: commitment to fairness, transparency, and sustainability, respect for universal ethical principles, while being culturally sensitive, and advocacy for ESG, environmental, social, and governance values, and inclusive growth. 2. Conceptual foundations of ethical and responsible leadership. Ethical leadership has been conceptualized as the demonstration of normatively appropriate conduct through personal actions and relationships, as well as the promotion of such conduct among followers through communication, decision-making, and reinforcement. Brown, Trevino, and Harrison, 2005. It rests on principles of honesty, integrity, justice, and care for others. Responsible leadership extends this framework by integrating ethical awareness with a sense of stakeholder accountability and societal purpose. In contrast to transactional or purely performance-oriented leadership, ethical and responsible leadership emphasizes the moral obligations of leaders toward multiple stakeholders, employees, customers, shareholders, communities, and the natural environment. This broader vision aligns with the concept of stakeholder theory Freeman 1984, which argues that corporations must balance diverse interests rather than prioritize short-term shareholder gains. 3. The moral challenges of global leadership. 3.1. Cultural relativism and universal ethics. Cultural relativism holds that moral values are culturally dependent, implying that no single ethical system is universally valid. While cultural diversity is an undeniable reality, global leadership requires a moral framework that transcends relativism to uphold fundamental human rights and global justice. Ethical global leaders must therefore balance universalism, commitment to universal moral norms with cultural sensitivity, respect for local traditions and contexts. For instance, issues such as gender equality, labor rights, and environmental protection may require confronting local practices that conflict with international ethical standards. Effective leaders approach such dilemmas through dialogue, education, and partnership rather than coercion, promoting change that is both principled and inclusive. 3.2. Human rights and corporate responsibility. The expansion of global corporations has given business leaders unprecedented influence over human rights, social justice, and environmental sustainability. The United Nations Global Compact (UNGC) and the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights (UNGPs) emphasize that companies must respect human rights avoid complicity in abuses, and remedy harms where they occur. Ethical and responsible leadership operationalizes these principles by embedding human rights into corporate governance, supply chains, and stakeholder relations. Leaders like Paul Polman, former CEO of Unilever, have exemplified this approach, advocating for corporate strategies that integrate social purpose with profitability. Such models challenge the narrow economic rationalism of the 20th century, replacing it with a triple bottom line: perspective, people, planet, and profit. Elkington, 1997. 4. Key aspects of ethical and responsible leadership. 4.1. Commitment to fairness, transparency, and sustainability. At the heart of ethical leadership lies a deep commitment to fairness, transparency, and sustainability. Fairness involves ensuring justice in decision-making, equitable treatment of stakeholders, and accountability for outcomes. Transparent leadership, in turn, demands openness in communication, honesty in reporting, and accessibility in governance processes. Transparency fosters trust, a critical asset for global organizations operating under public scrutiny and digital exposure. Sustainability extends ethical responsibility beyond immediate stakeholders to future generations. Ethical global leaders integrate environmental and social considerations into corporate strategy, ensuring that development today does not compromise the well-being of tomorrow. The concept of intergenerational equity, central to sustainability, ethics requires leaders to steward resources responsibly and prioritize long-term value creation over short-term gains. 4.2. Respect for universal ethical principles while being culturally sensitive. Ethical global leadership requires a dual orientation: adherence to universal ethical principles such as justice, honesty, and human dignity, while maintaining respect for cultural diversity. Leaders must be culturally literate, understanding the symbolic and moral frameworks that shape behavior across societies. This duality reflects ethical relativism in practice, but universalism in principle. Leaders can adapt methods without compromising moral standards. For instance, negotiating labor standards in developing countries may require sensitivity to local economic constraints, while upholding international norms against exploitation. Cultural sensitivity also entails empathy, humility, and dialogue. Rather than imposing Western-centric models, ethical global leaders co-create ethical solutions with local stakeholders, fostering mutual respect and ownership. This approach aligns with servant leadership Greenleaf, 1977, which emphasizes humility, listening, and service as expressions of moral authority. 4.3. Advocacy for ESG and inclusive growth. In the 21st century, the integration of environmental, social, and governance (ESG) principles has become a defining feature of responsible leadership. ESG provides a structured framework for assessing and improving corporate conduct in sustainability, social justice, and governance integrity. Global leaders who champion ESG act as catalysts for systemic change, ensuring that business serves society rather than the reverse. Ethical leaders recognize that financial performance and social impact are not contradictory but interdependent. By aligning ESG strategies with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs), they contribute to inclusive and equitable growth. Such leaders advocate for decarbonization, gender equality, digital ethics, and transparent governance as central pillars of responsible globalization. 5. The strategic value of ethical and responsible leadership. Ethical and responsible leadership generates strategic advantages by fostering trust, legitimacy, and long-term stability. Organizations led by ethical leaders are more resilient to crises, attract loyal employees, and maintain stronger relationships with regulators and civil society. Research consistently shows that ethical leadership correlates with higher employee engagement, organizational commitment, and innovation. Brown and Trevino, 2006. Moreover, as consumers and investors increasingly favor ethical brands and sustainable portfolios, responsible leadership has become a key determinant of competitive advantage. 6. Developing ethical and responsible global leaders. Ethical leadership is not innate. It can be cultivated through education, reflection, and experience. Leadership development programs should integrate ethics as a core component, combining moral philosophy, cross-cultural communication, and sustainability studies. Reflective practice through mentoring, case analysis, and ethical dialogue helps leaders clarify their values and understand the moral implications of their decisions. Corporate governance frameworks should institutionalize ethics through codes of conduct, ethical audits, and transparent accountability systems. 7. Conclusion. Ethical and responsible leadership constitutes the moral foundation of global leadership. In the 21st century, it transcends profit maximization to embrace stewardship, sustainability, and human dignity. Global leaders must demonstrate commitment to fairness, transparency, and sustainability, ensuring that decisions promote justice for present and future generations. They must uphold universal ethical principles while engaging with cultural diversity, respectfully embodying both moral conviction and intercultural empathy. Finally, they must advocate for ESG and inclusive growth, aligning organizational objectives with the global pursuit of equity, environmental stewardship, and shared prosperity. In a time of global uncertainty and moral fragmentation, ethical and responsible leadership stands as both compass and conscience, guiding humanity toward a more just, sustainable, and compassionate world.